Good evening, everyone watching us across Cameroon and in the world. This evening, we are talking about Cameroon and the incidents or events that are following up after the 12th of October presidential election in the country. As always, we have special guests, but today something very particular is drawing our attention, which is a document, an open letter written by Project C, a movement of Cameroonians advocating for democracy and peaceful transition. A letter that they've so far addressed to the Pope Leo, ahead of his potential visit to Cameroon. Project C has actually told the Pope to ensure that he speaks the truth and defend justice, and also publicly question and investigate churches observers report confirming the real election results in Cameroon, which according to them is showing that Issa Tchiroma is winner of the October 12th presidential election in Cameroon, and that the Electoral Commission and authorities reversed the result to declare Paul Biya the winner despite his age and alleged loss of legitimacy. Now, tonight, we are going to also be talking about something very important, ladies and gentlemen. The political atmosphere in Cameroon has been very dramatic in the past few weeks. The truth of the ballot is under attack. Repression is rising, and silence or hesitation of some of our most influential institutions. And many people have been asking a lot of questions. Who will stand with the people at this point in time? And we've seen a lot of people speaking out and standing up as well. And this week, the dedication or rededication of St. Joseph's Cathedral in Bamenda became a moment of revelation when the Apostolic Nuncio mentioned Paul Biya as president of Cameroon. We saw how the congregation reacted with clear disapproval. It was more than a moment of discomfort. It was a sign that the people of God are no longer willing to accept a narrative imposed from above, in quote. At the same time, we have seen bold moves from camps of elected President Issa Tchiroma, including the appointment of legendary human rights lawyer Barrister Alice Nkom as official spokesperson. The political, social, and spiritual tensions have never been more than intertwined in Cameroon. So tonight, we are going to be asking key crucial questions. What is the role of the church in a time of dictatorship, injustice, and stolen democracy? To explore these issues, we are honored to welcome a voice of courage and conscience. That voice is Reverend Father Ludovic Lado. He is a Jesuit priest, professor of anthropology, and a man who has demonstrated his commitment to justice, not only through words, but also action. We've seen him taken a lot of actions in Cameroon over the past few years. He stood for the people, not for himself, not for an individual, not for an institution, or even the church that he belongs in. He has stood for the people. So, Father Lado, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me, and I greet all the viewers, and then hope that we'll have a good time to exchange. Yes.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to have you tonight.
Thank you.
Just introduced you briefly. I don't know if I said everything that should be said about you. You are really known in Cameroon today by so many people who are watching us at the moment. But maybe there are some things about you I didn't say, what you stand for, who you are, and what you've achieved so far. Your portfolio is so huge. And if I missed out something, maybe you go ahead and tell Cameroonians what those things I missed out are.
Well, I mean, I think you said most of it. I mean, I'm a Cameroonian, I'm a Catholic priest, a Jesuit, and a university lecturer. And I've worked in Cameroon at the Catholic University. I've worked in Abidjan, in the Jesuit University there. I've worked in Chad. These were all administrative and academic positions related to teaching, research, and higher education. And I'm currently at Harvard University for a one-year fellowship of teaching and research. And I have definitely been in this struggle against the current Biya regime for at least 15 to 20 years, since I was the vice dean at the Faculty of Social Sciences and Management at the Catholic University in Yaoundé. And so, well, I think in a nutshell, that's what I can say about myself. And I do feel that it's part of my calling as a priest to stand up for the people like Jesus did for the poorest of the poor in his time. And I feel that that's what the church should be doing. And unfortunately, it's not always the case.
Yes, interesting, Father, and thank you once again for joining us tonight. When people hear that a Jesuit priest, they want to know because there's just that general misconception that is different when it comes to the Catholic Church. Can you edify us a little bit this evening?
Well, a Jesuit priest is a member of the Society of Jesus, generally known as Jesuits, and it's a very old congregation which was founded in 1540 by Saint Ignatius of Loyola, a Spaniard, who was called by God to, serve the church in some capacity. And I think he influenced in the course of centuries a number of people who joined the congregation, and the Society of Jesus became one of the, well, I would say one of the most influential congregation in the history of the church. And we are all over the world. We are part, of course, part of the Catholic Church, entirely into the Catholic Church. Although, of course, the history of the Jesuits, it has not been an easy one. I can even mention the fact that the Jesuits were suppressed by one pope in the 18th century, because again, there were a lot of disagreement, but they were restored, in the 19th century. So, yeah, it is a very interesting setting. And I like being a Jesuit because you have some margins of freedom to
express
look at the
yourself,
world, to express yourself, to look at the world, to analyze the world, and because one key word for the Jesuits, one key word for the Jesuits is discernment, which means that people are not around to say, don't say this, don't do this, but they trust that if you have been well trained, you can discern yourself and be responsible for whatever undertakings you are after. Yes. So yeah. And I've been around, I've been in this congregation for at least 35 years. So
yeah. So if there's someone who is really, more than capable to talk about the Catholic Church in Cameroon, in Africa, and the world, that person is you, because you've really stood out when it comes to, injustice, bad leadership, governance, and so on. We saw a scene, a rare one, at the cathedral in Bamenda, where the Apostolic Nuncio was shortly pulled after referring to Paul Biya as president. When you saw that, what was your reaction? How did you feel about that scene?
Well, for me, it was some sort of, again, I was glad he had that experience. And I'm happy he had that experience. Because...
But he was not happy about it, apparently.
You mean the nuncio?
Yes.
Yeah, of course, he shouldn't be happy. Because again, since this struggle, for decades now, I've been challenging the church, kind of warning the church that we may lose touch with the base if we are not sensitive to people's struggles, And that was a first-hand experience for him, because diplomacy, of course, probably we need it in the church, but which kind of diplomacy? you know. And again, I'm not sure the Pope really understands the context, or if he does, then again, he didn't manage it well. But I do feel like some of the bishops do not really help the nuncio to understand the context, because again, you are invited to an event like that, which is of course religious. I'm not saying he shouldn't have been there, but you are kind of, you're escorted by a detachment of the B, which is, I mean, special forces, and so it is. I mean, he was not even like trying to hide it in a sense. I mean, he was very. I mean, it was so obvious that he was enjoying the whole thing, and as if that was not enough, why should the representative of the president or of head of state be at a ceremony like that? Unless probably he gave money for the cathedral and we are not told, which we should have been told as in terms, I mean, as a matter of transparency. If it is if a representative of the head of state was there because the bishop obtained some money from the presidency to build the church, then we should have been told, and then that was probably a way of saying thank you, but we're not aware of that. So now, why should there be a representative of the head of state? I don't know. And especially in a region like the Northwest, we know what the Northwest is going through at the hands of these people who are ruling the countries. I mean, they have suffered martyrdom. And you just come and you think that you can just name president like that. I mean, especially after the recent elections. And we know that the results in the Northwest were scandalous. And again, recently I was just watching a video from a pastor.
Yes.
I mean, he was literally, on fire because she was, I mean, calling to task, I mean, those who kind of rigged the elections. You know, when you look at the elections results in the Northwest, it is scandalous. And the Archbishop said nothing. But I know he knows the truth. But then you invite the nuncio and he will come up there. And by the way, is the nuncio, obliged to name people as if a homily was a speech in a political setting? You don't need to start by, most this or Press Excellency. No, you are giving a homily, which is a religious and a spiritual moment. You don't need to call out names. Just give your homily. But when you make it a political thing, I mean, people react. And he got what he deserved. I mean, I'm happy, very happy he got that moment, because
but some people will argue. Yes, so
he can learn from it.
Yes, so according to what we saw, it was like provocation. I mean, based on the reactions. But some people will argue that the nuncio simply followed diplomatic protocol. Others will say that the church, or it shows that the church is failing its moral duty to speak truth, especially in times of injustice.
Yes.
What do you think about this school of thoughts?
Well, following diplomatic protocols, was Jesus into diplomacy? Not at all. Do you think that Jesus will enter a synagogue and begin to say, His Excellency Herod, His Excellency Pilate? No, Jesus will never do that. Jesus was out to speak truth to power, and to speak for the downtrodden people. I mean, the poorest of the poor, the widow, the orphan. She was always on the side of the downtrodden. And that's what we expect from the church. Too much diplomacy in the church is destroying the church. Because you again, let me just say this. If all this happened after the Archbishop had kind of criticized the way elections had been run, I mean, the results, and saying it's not true, this can't be true of the Northwest, that Biya won there by 80+%, that if he had said that before, people would have said, okay, well, this is somebody who kind of, he spoke the truth. I mean, he challenged the system. Oh no, he has been conspicuously quiet. And how do you explain that? And you expect people to just sit down there and say, oh, well, well done, Nuncio, when you come and tell them that an illegitimate president is their president in the name of diplomatic protocols. No, you are insulting them. You are not serving the truth. You don't care about the truth. You care about diplomatic protocols. And the church does not exist for diplomatic protocols. The church exists to serve the people of God, to defend the truth wherever there are lies, and especially when it is working against the dignity of the people of God. I believe that that's what we are priests for, and that is what they are bishops for. It's not to kind of be diplomatic. Again, diplomacy for me is just, it should be a marginal thing in the church, not at the center of the church. So again, that incident for me came at the right time, because actually before that incident, I had published a video in which, in fact, I was challenging the bishops on the fact that they have been silent since the post-electoral crisis started. And I was basically asking them whether they are with the people or with the current regime. And I recall the fact that the current president of the Episcopal Conference, who happens to be the current Archbishop of Bamenda, was quick to answer. I mean, to go to the invitation of the Secretary General of the Presidency when he was doing all those kind of consultations. He was very quick to rally a few bishops around him, and they went there. I was very critical of that move at that time. But I'm surprised that since the post-electoral crisis started, and even before that, we know that immediately after elections, Bishop Kea signed a letter in which he said that the church had observed elections in at least 12,000 poll stations. So I would have expected that in a situation like this, the church could be able to say, well, we were not in all the poll stations, but this is what we saw in these polls, 12,000. Because 12,000 is almost 40% of the overall 31,000 poll stations. Imagine if the church had done that and said, well, again, we can't give the overall results, but this is what we observed in these 12,000 plus poll stations. But why are they keeping quiet when people are not happy with the results and they feel that once again the current regime rigged and robbed Cameroonians of their sovereignty?
Interesting. So historically, the Catholic Church in Cameroon has played a very prophetic role, especially in the early 1990s. You're better placed to tell us exactly what the role of the Catholic Church is. But because we are looking at the future, I just wanted to find out, do you think that the church today is becoming too cautious or perhaps even complicit through silence?
Yeah, again, that's my view on this. Again, the 1990s. The 1990s I had just finished secondary school and started my training as a priest. And I still remember because actually for my first 3 years of training as a priest, because I started out as a diocesan priest, I went to Bambi. I was in Bambi for 3 years. That's why I know quite a number of Catholic priests, both in the Northwest and Southwest, those of my generation. And I know, including some bishops today who were ahead of me in the seminary, but I know them very well, including the Archbishop of Bamenda, who were at least 1 or 2 years at the same time in the seminary. So, again, in those days, in the early 1990s, we witnessed the Frundi phenomenon. And I still remember that a number of my teachers in philosophy and theology in Bambi, in STAMS, St. Thomas Aquinas Major Seminary of Bambi at the time, they were quite close to Frundi. And they used to go, all these resistance for democracy, rising up for democracy started with Frundi in Bamenda. I was in the seminary. So I had the sense of what the church was at the time. And of course, we all know when Cardinal Toomey began to speak up, and to challenge this, the current government, which is still in power. That was really a prophetic time for the church in Cameroon. And of course, if you want to go back in history, we remember that Bishop Ndongmo, who was Bishop of Konsaba at the time, was jailed because, again, Aijo was not, Aijo kind of accused him of intelligence or with the rebels, the Maquisards, they were calling them at the time of the UPC and all these rebel movements, resistance against colonialism. But then, after that saga, in the post-1970s, of course, the major prophetic figure at the time has been Cardinal Toomey until his death. May he so rest in peace. But he was a public voice, a public prophetic voice in Cameroon. And since his death, I think that we are struggling. We are struggling. We have a few bishops here and there in the north, in Douala, in Bafoussam, who have been courageous enough to say, well, we are not heading the right way.
Do you think there's any reason why it's difficult for the church in Cameroon to really take that strong stance that we are seeing others in countries like Malawi, other countries in Africa doing? Is there any particular reason why it's difficult for the prelates or the church to stand firm and say, this is wrong, this is right, this is injustice, this is legitimate, and this is illegitimate? Is there any reason?
Well, again, if you take bishops individually, there are few who are trying to do that in very difficult circumstances. The problem now is taking the bishop conference as a whole, because you will realize, you will probably notice that the same people are speaking out. It is always the same people speaking up, and it's always the same people keeping quiet. And again, you can easily identify those who are speaking and those who are keeping quiet. The good question is, why are they keeping quiet?
Because
And
you'll be stronger if the whole
my guess,
conference, the organization speaks up, like in
yes,
one voice,
yes,
like you're
they,
saying, yes.
they have not been able to do it strongly. And my guess is that in the current conference, the current Episcopal conference, there are too many bishops who are mindful of their personal interest. And they feel that if they challenge the current government, they will lose their interest. It is as simple as that. Because I don't see any other reason. Why are they afraid? They are afraid because, again, they have their interest to protect. And if they speak
Mhm.
up, they will lose those interests, which is unfortunate for the Catholic Church in Cameroon. Because you would imagine and even hope that the church is out there to stand for the truth. And imagine, just imagine if the whole Episcopal Conference, and again, I'm not saying this is peculiar to Cameroon, all over the world, including in the US, they have just held their annual conference. And it is obvious that in the US, it is very divided between the pro-Trump and the anti-Trump. And that's part of the dynamic that, again, it's unfortunate that as a clergy, we can all, stand for the truth and for the weak and for justice and for truth. But that's how it is. It has also always been like that. But it weakens the voice, the public voice of the church, which is unfortunate
Mhm.
because,
Yes, we're
again,
also seeing. Well, so we've seen this outing by Project C. Certainly, Project C, they've been doing a lot, sensitizing Cameroonians, bringing people together and informing them about the things they need to know. But
mhm,
they are cautioning that Pope Leo is not supposed to come to Cameroon. And they are
yes,
saying that this is the time when they need the Pope to really speak up on the injustices that we are seeing in Cameroon, rights violations, and the fact
mhm,
that the people's will has been stolen. Even the people who managed to go and vote for change in Cameroon, they've not seen that change happening. And they would
sure,
expect an authority like the Vatican to come out and say, this is
sure.
wrong and this is right, and this is where we stand. But the
Mhm,
people have not seen that, and Project C is kind of worried that there are plans on the way to make the Pope visit Cameroon. Do
mhm,
you think that looking at how cautious, I should say cautious, the church is being cautious,
mhm.
is with regards to politics happenings in Cameroon, it kind of undermines democracy or religion now today, or the church is being used as a tool to kind of undermine democracy in the country. Is that what you think?
Yes, I think that Project C is on the right track, and they should. I just hope that they get their document to the Pope itself. And if they don't have the address where to, because even before Project C went that direction, I had written an open letter to Pope Leo to caution him against coming to Cameroon to legitimate an illegitimate government. And I am I mean, I'm trying now. These days, especially, today, it is today, I will send out the official version of my letter to the Pope. So I'm hoping that if Project C gets that open letter to the Vatican and even to the Nuncio in Cameroon, it can make a difference. And I'm even hoping that if at all we have a sense that the Vatican is not aware of the situation, because it's not the fault of the Vatican. The Vatican can only act according to what they hear from bishops and from the nuncio. And if the nuncio and the bishops have been telling him, no, come, it's all nice. Don't worry, the environment. And that's probably what they have been telling him, because um, some envoys from the Vatican came recently to Douala to kind of look at the initial steps of how to organize such a trip for them. And for me, it's very unfortunate that when the Cameroonian people are struggling to reclaim their sovereignty and for the manifestation of the truth, that the clergy, especially the bishop, are only concerned about bringing the Pope to Cameroon. And when I say this, some people will argue that no, maybe the Pope will come and maybe help solve the problem. That's not the role of the Pope. The Pope will not come and solve your problem for you. I mean, the Pope can only come and encourage you to be good Christians and things like that. But the problem is that these guys want to use the visit of the Pope as a legitimacy stamp on their illegitimate government. And so that's what we must fight for, that Catholics really believe that the church should stand for justice and peace. Again, we are not against, of course, not at all against a papal visit to Cameroon. I know, I mean, I'm a priest. I'll be happy to welcome the Pope in Cameroon. But the question, but not now. Not now. And I keep telling people that those who think that the Pope will come and things will be better, that no, this government, this regime has already welcomed three papal visits. You know, they have already handled 3 papal visits, 2 with John Paul II and 1 with Benedict. And the presidential couple, I mean, Paul Biya and Chantal, even went to, because Francis couldn't come to Cameroon, they went to Rome, and they were received by Pope Francis, the last one who died. So if that could help our country get back on track, we'll be back on track. These guys don't care. They don't care about justice. They don't care about truth. They only care about their image. And it is a pity that the church will help them in this kind of dirty game of just, and because again, you see, even this kind of visits, who will pay for it? Not the church. It is the government. And the government doesn't care where they take the money to pay for this kind of visits. These are, hundreds of millions to bring the Pope around and move him around, things like that. This is a lot of money. Again, I'm not just worrying about money, I'm worrying about what message that will send out to people. That the Pope can just come, he doesn't care about the government is legitimate or not, whether it cares about the poor or not. It just comes, it's for, I mean, people sing and dance and are happy, and when he's gone, we go back to our old demons. No. It is, that's why, again, I'm hoping that even beyond Project C, if we feel, because I saw that, I saw the letter you are referring to, it is signed by 2 well-known figures in the public space in Cameroon. But I'm hoping that beyond that, if we have the impression that Vatican has not really got the message, then we must initiate now a more popular kind of, you know, some sort
Action.
of open letter. Yes, action, where we get thousands and thousands and thousands people sign a petition to tell the Pope, we love you, we want you in Cameroon, but not now.
Interesting. As an anthropologist, tell us, how do you interpret the moral and symbolic clash between ballot legitimacy that we've talked about, claimed by Issa Tchiroma Bakari, and institutional control that is being held by Paul Biya?
Well, it is I mean, it's an old, you could say, conflict or conflict between legality and legitimacy. The current regime, having sworn in Paul Biya, they have the legality, but they don't have the legitimacy, and they know it. President-elect Tchiroma has the legitimacy, but not the legality. But what is more important from a moral point of view is legitimacy. Because legality without legitimacy is theft, means you have stolen. And so again, it means it is an illegitimate reigning government should be thrown out by all means. That's why I'm again still hoping that when President-elect Tchiroma has settled, that more actions, that there will be more actions again in Cameroon, because I'm not sure we can really challenge this reigning illegitimate government just by doing outside diplomacy. I don't think it's enough. We must get things going in Cameroon. And I'm also hoping and praying that to support the action of President-elect Tchiroma, so that we can kind of, put more pressure on this current government. That probably the diaspora, the least we can do, actually to also help him get a sense of the way ahead, is that I'm hoping that the diaspora can, especially those who are supporting the action of Tchiroma, then we can get together around an international conference for the refoundation of Cameroon, to kind of get a blueprint of where we want Cameroon to go next, because we can't reduce it to Tchiroma's party. I keep insisting that, of course, Tchiroma was the instrument of God's instrument at this particular time in history. But we should be honest about the fact that this was more a referendum against Paul Biya regime than some sort of, plebiscite for Tchiroma. And I feel that in the current situation where Tchiroma has been forced out of the country, he should rely as much as he can on the diaspora. And I think that the results of the elections from the diaspora were clearly and largely in favor of Tchiroma. I think this is one tool he should explore a bit more as he struggles to settle somewhere and, continue his resistance. And again, I hope that the diaspora can really support his action, and hopefully it will help us keep some pressure on this illegitimate government.
Yeah, so do you think that, because when we are looking at the things that are happening, it's interesting to see that you're saying that the actions should be really global if we want to achieve something that cuts across, for everybody to feel like they belong, involved, and so on. And with all these problems that we are seeing, all the issues with legality and illegitimate leadership in Cameroon and so on, does it tell us that Cameroon has truly never experienced democratic alternation at all?
Well, that has always been my point of view. The only novelty this time is that, and this is again something we have to credit Tchiroma with. I mean, former leaders. We saw in 2018 with Professor Kamto. They tried to challenge the election results, but we know the outcome. I mean, they were jailed, and because again, people were easily jailed, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why the President-elect Tchiroma chose to go abroad. But my point of view has always been that probably since 1992, because yes, there have never been democratic elections in Cameroon. The only difference now is that we were able to prove it. And I think it's one step, it is one good step in the direction of democracy, that Cameroonians have realized that the only way for them to, expose the corruption of this regime and the rigging of this was indeed to not just to vote, but to stay there and wait until the results of each polling station are out. And we are lucky these days, again, that we have all these phones and people can film and they can go out there. I think that's what made the difference this time. And they were not, the current regime did not expect that level of exposure. And the fact that, and I think that this was very smart from the from Tchiroma teams, that they kind of collected the results of the main regions, because they claim that the results they put out there, if you were able to win in those divisions, you could claim victory, which makes sense statistically. And so it was a very smart move, I think. And the results are out there again, and you can see that the government has never tried to challenge them on that, in that field of saying, you said this is the true results in this division, but this is what we have. You said, because if Elekam or the state, if they were really out for the truth, they would have just published all the results, one polling station after one polling station. You will see that Elekam has never put out in public any result. And that again shows us that it is a system, it is a fraudulent system, and they have always operated like that. They have always operated like that. And so again, the credit and to the Tchiroma movement and team today is that they managed to put that fraudulent system out with the help, of course, of the people at the grassroots level. I'm just hoping that his entourage is able to help him to kind of keep the challenge going to push this system. Because what you will see now is that the CPDM regime wants to move on. And you consider that they're busy trying to organize regional elections, but their hope is just that this will be behind us and they will move on and continue to do what they are used to, which means,
but no one is moving on as we are coming. No one is ready to move on, because as we are having this conversation, I can see everyone is interested. So where is what is happening? What has Tchiroma said today? So Tchiroma is not disappearing anytime soon. And yesterday we actually took a very historic move and appointed Barrister Alice Nkom as spokesperson of the Tchiroma elected presidency. Can you tell us what this move signifies? What is the symbolism of this move?
Well, again, I think it is a smart move, although a risky one, because Barrister Alice Nkom, of course, is a well-known public figure in Cameroon, a famous, I think she was one, if not the first Cameroonian woman to kind of, rise to that position as a barrister, and she has always kind of been on the human rights side, because she has always been involved in the defense of human rights. Nobody knows any history of compromise with any power system around the place, and she could have done that if she wanted, but she also has been on the civil society side. So she's a well-respected figure in Cameroon, although, of course, some people would think that her advocacy for LGBTQ kind of, it's a controversial aspect of her. But overall, she's very well respected because of her, ethics and steadfastness and, integrity and things like that. So it is a good pick, definitely, for this resistance. Because all the other major resistance figure in Cameroon now are in jail. could say, especially regarding the Tchiroma's movement or current struggle. They're all in jail. So she's probably only the major figure out there still outspeaking, and it's even surprising that they have not yet arrested her. But that's my fear, because I'm not sure that in Cameroon, that's why, again, these are a few of my questions and interrogations. I'm not sure that she can speak out, for example, like hold a press conference in favor of the president-elect Tchiroma in Cameroon. They will not allow her. And so, but now, whether they will go as far as arresting her, that's something we need to be careful about. And I'm hoping that they have a plan B in terms of having, at least in the diaspora, somebody who can act as a spokesperson if all people, I mean, all the major figures in Cameroon are jailed, that somebody can still speak out for Tchiroma, especially from the West. Because my impression is that, my guess is that, as long as Tchiroma is in an African country, I don't see any African country allowing him to stay there and challenge another African country. This is for diplomatic reason, and they wouldn't want their country to serve as a base for a leader who has challenged a reigning government which has been sworn in, I think. So that's a difficult task. But I'm hoping that Tchiroma will appoint some people in the diaspora who can speak out for him, even if they end up arresting Barrister Alice Nkom, which I guess.
But don't you think that arresting her is going to cause like some sort of a spark? Because it seems that the government actually knows. You remember before the election, while the government was cracking down on associations and civil society organizations, even her association was one of those affected as well. She was summoned and she refused to go. They locked her office. She took the bold step to open it. And really, nothing was done because they know that this is a woman that is, I'm not saying no one is untouchable, but she is almost untouchable. She is powerful. People believe in her. She embodies that motherhood that people see in female personalities. And she's one of those people that, if touched now in Cameroon, it could just worsen the political situation in the country. That could be something that, like you said, was a very smart move. But the government also is aware what could potentially be the impact if she is touched by anyone.
Sure, I agree. I mean, again, it was a smart move. That's why I think it's the right pick. But knowing this government, if she really becomes a threat to them, they will arrest her. I mean, I'm saying this because I remember that during the Anglophone crisis, they went after somebody like Paul, who was, I mean, a high magistrate. I mean, he was in a high position, I say, in the judiciary, but they arrested him, they jailed him. Of course, in political action, you never know what will be the next move in terms of how people will react. But knowing this government, if Barrister Alice Nkom really becomes a threat to them, they will arrest her. And they will use violence as they use during the protest. Even if they kill people, they don't care. That's why I'm saying that it is a smart move, but they should have a backup in the diaspora. They should have a backup in the diaspora. But if you are in Cameroon and you are openly supporting the president-elect Tchiroma, as long as they don't feel like you are threatening them, they can leave you alone. But if they really feel that because you see, the problem now is that since he has been sworn in, I mean, President Biya has been sworn in, any action from a Cameroonian in Cameroon in favor of Tchiroma will be interpreted as sedition. I mean, like, rebellion against, I mean, they have all these terms to kind of go after you in terms of. Now, the issue is, will Cameroonians rise up to defend Barrister Alice Nkom if she is arrested? Because for me, that's key. And my problem with the Cameroonian protest or rebellion right now is that those actually going into the streets are the poorest of the poor, not the middle class, which I don't expect. Actually, middle class have never actually been a tool of revolution. It always come from below, from the peasants, from the poorest of the poor, the marginalized. So the question now will be, if she is arrested, will that spark another, protest cycle, which I hope should, because that's the only tool we have in Cameroon now. And again, I feel that the streets protests are one of the strengths we have in Cameroon today. But we need a leader who can actually push people into the streets in that kind of situation.
Yeah, we've seen people like you taking to the streets, personal initiatives, and we hope that minds can be put together to
Sure.
see how to do that without, being violent or violating any
definitely.
laws in the country. So what do you think or believe lawyers, clergies, and even civil society actors, what do you think should be their role right now when a fear, arrest, and enforced disappearance is becoming the norm in Cameroon? What should be the roles of these personalities or people within these categories?
Well, I think that some people, there's a category that I really admire in Cameroon today, lawyers. And these are mostly lawyers related to the MRC, the Camptos party. And these lawyers have been very courageous, involved in selfless defense of the arrested Cameroonians, the kidnapped Cameroonians who are in jail. I know a number of Maître Sim, for example, Maître Hippolyte, for example, and many others. There are dozens of them, and they're doing a great job. And I really congratulate them for this. Because again, as you know, most of the arrests in Cameroon today are not done according to the law. They just come, they knock at your door, they kidnap you, they take you away. Your family doesn't even know where you are, and you can disappear if lawyers are not after them. And that's what they have been trying to do. So this is a group we should really support, even financially. And this is why I think the diaspora can be very useful. We should kind of make collections and send to those teams to support their work on the ground. And again, the church, has been very disappointing. As a whole, because again, I know individual priests and bishops have been speaking up for justice, for truth, but as a whole, we have not been able to do what we are supposed to be doing as a church, which means to be vocal in favor of the truth, beginning with church leaders. We have been mostly concerned about our liturgical celebrations, big ceremonies, and sometimes too close to these guys in power, persecuting Cameroonians. We are very, I'm not saying that, they are human beings, of course, but we should challenge them as far as their duty as leaders is supposed to be. They're supposed to serve the common good, to serve justice, to serve truth. And again, apart from Bishop Cleda, who came out to say, well, the Cameroonians are frustrated because the truth of the ballots was not, I mean,
Respected.
respected. No other bishop has said anything. You see, and for me, this is a pity. When in a country where you know, at least people are talking about at least 40 to 50 people were killed by guns, and where dozens of people are being arrested on a daily basis and being taken all over. I mean, these were situations in which Cardinal Tumi will speak out and people will listen, and people will be happy to hear that there is a public voice of the church out there speaking truth to power, which is something we are missing these days. And the church should continue to put pressure on these guys so that, you know, they don't just think that they can do what they want with people's life and people's dignity. Yes, so civil society organizations also, I mean, I guess they are doing their best, but it's very weak in Cameroon, I must say so. Civil society organizations have become very weak. We don't hear. I mean, individually, they are doing things around here and there. I know that Stand Up for Cameroon has been kind of supporting those in jail and, you know, tracing their whereabouts. But you would expect, like in other countries, that they will come together and form a coalition, which makes them stronger in terms of, you know, facing this you know, cruel and violent regime. But they have not managed to do that, which is again a weakness on the part of the Cameroonian political landscape. And so we do have, and when you look at the finally you look at the political class, in Cameroon today, it's all fragmented, and you could say, when you look at, what we used to call the opposition party, you don't see any. Again, apart from Tchiroma, now he's on exile. But now, in Cameroon itself, who is a who can you call an opposition figure who is speaking out, who is standing up to the current regime? No, they preferred to keep quiet, knowing who won the election. That's my problem with the current political class. You take all the other major, what you used to call the major political parties, who had a presidential candidate. None of them had the courage to say, we know who is the winner.
Yeah, but to my own, Damjoya, for instance, she was the only female candidate has really come out to reject the
not
election
to say that
result.
Tchiroma is the winner. Not to say that Tchiroma is the winner. That's what I'm waiting. I was hoping that SDF, PCRN, and Damjoya, I was hoping that at some point they would say, we know the truth, because they said they have the how do we say that?
They have the PVs. They have the
PVs.
result.
What are they doing with the PVs if they can't speak the truth? My guess, and that's my guess, is that even opposition leaders have been bought over, and many are just waiting to enter the new government. That's something we are guessing. And if they go, if they openly say that we know the truth because we have the PVs and we know who won, they are, putting their own interest in danger. And I can understand their frustration that after the political past of Tchiroma that we know, that Cameroonians chose Tchiroma over them. But this kind of analysis is short-sighted. People do not choose Tchiroma because he was the best. He was the best for the situation. He was the best for the situation, basically because people wanted the votes of the North. If Tchiroma was not part of the game, we would have scattered the votes from the North. So what I'm trying to say is that I'm also disappointed with the current shape of the opposition leaders in Cameroon. I'm not sure they are helping Cameroon to move, to get out of the current mess.
Yes, so yes, it's interesting. So you see, as you're talking, I'm taking down notes because everything that you say is very important. Father, what would you describe as the path towards justice and national reconciliation? How would it look like when one side is denying the truth of the vote?
Well, that's a very difficult question because the problem is that we're dealing here with a regime which has a vested interest and who are afraid that if they leave now, they'll be put to trial, just as what we are seeing in Gabon. Put in and they want to hold on to those vested interests and continue to plunder as they have done. And because you have ministers who have been in a specific ministry for more than 20 years, so it's almost like it is their business, their enterprise, and so what is the way out is a very, very difficult question. And I know that probably Tchiroma has been approached privately to kind of change his mind and probably get some privileges in the new privileged positions in the new government, which is probably not the way out of the situation because you can't change the culture of this government. They just have to leave office. So my hope, if at all, our current action with Tchiroma doesn't bear fruit, so my hope is just that we have to wait for this guy to die. That's all I'm seeing. If we don't manage to push them out through, diplomatic action outside the country, but then also through some, mass action in Cameroon. If we are not able to push them out of the place, we just have to, bear and wait for this guy to die, which is a pity.
Yeah, indeed. That's really a pity. We don't know when that is eventually going to happen.
We
Maybe
don't know. It's only God.
only God. Yes, that's
Yes.
right. Only God knows that. But
Yes, yes.
to prevent, people, there's a lot of anger now, disappointment. People are also very, anxious, and they're expecting to see what the future holds, tomorrow holds for them. People are still expecting to see change. I mean, to see that kind of reaction in a church in Bamenda where there's conflict, it tells a lot about how much people are hoping to see that someday, somehow, I mean, in the coming weeks, coming months, there could be some glimmer of hope somewhere. They don't know where it's going to come from or how it's going to happen, but they're certain and ready for it because that shows that they're actually ready. So, what message will you have for Cameroonians currently living in fear, those who are mourning and those who are in silence, even, having some doubts? What message would you have for them?
Well, of course, we sympathize, and it's so compassion that our prayers and thoughts are with them. And it's a pity that Cameroonians will lose their life, and this is not just now with the Anglophone crisis. Thousands of people have lost their lives. The livelihoods have been destroyed, and that's why again the reaction of people in the cathedral in Bamenda was a strong message to both the clergy and the powers that be. So I'm hoping that they got the message and that they will think about it and do their best now to speak out for the people, to speak up for the people. And but there's no way out because again, when you look at the Anglophone crisis, even when the Anglophone crisis and it's still going on, when it started, I have always been very vocal against this government because they chose the way of they chose oppression over dialogue, and that has not led us anywhere. It has led us to loss of lives and loss of property, destroying the whole region. And this and at the time, many Francophones were not very sympathetic to the Anglophone cause. They thought it was the problem of Anglophones. And so, in a sense, I'm glad that now their eyes have opened and are realizing that the Anglophones were right to say we can't put up anymore with this government. But it comes when? Almost 10 years after. If we had joined hands in those days to fight, probably would have succeeded. So it's sometimes they say better late than never, but again, there is no way out of this kind of situation than to fight and to stand up for the truth, to stand up for the poorest, to stand up for the weak. And this should be the role of the church. And I'm again hoping that the incident in Bamenda Cathedral, is keeping them thinking and meditating on what does that mean? Because again, it came spontaneously from below. I don't think people planned that. No, it was a spontaneous reaction.
Yes,
to this kind of insensitive diplomacy, which tends to care more about what the politics or political guys, the powerful would think about us instead of caring about what people are feeling below. So it is a wake-up call, I hope so, for the clergy, and that, well, that would keep them thinking, and also for them to take action regarding the struggle of the people and regarding justice. So again, those who are in fear, those who are suffering, well, again, compassion, but also, yeah, let us not despair, especially if we are believers. We should keep fighting, and when the time comes for God to free us, like He did with His people in Egypt, then He will help us out of this the current mess and dictatorship in Cameroon.
And then we are hoping. Do you have that impression that that time will come when people would restore their hope in the church? I'm not saying people are hopeless or that they don't believe in the church, but that time when they will believe that the church can stand up in the face of injustice and say that the right thing should be done. Do you see that happening in Cameroon?
Well, I will obviously continue to encourage individual bishops who have been very vocal to continue to speak up for justice and for truth and to defend the poor. I'm not very hopeful about the overall Episcopal Conference. No, that would be a dream. False. An empty dream. So I feel that the way the Episcopal Conference is composed now, the configuration of the current Episcopal Conference doesn't make it possible. There are many in there who will rather die than say anything against the current government. So I'm not counting on them. They will continue to do their things and behave like bourgeois clergy, but it doesn't. It looks like it's not their problem, but I'm still hopeful that individual bishops and even priests will continue to speak up, taking some risk too, just like in the days of Cardinal Toomey. He used to do. He didn't beg for any permission from anybody to say this is wrong. It shouldn't be this way. Because I remember that in the 1990s, when there was this commandement opérationnel, when they were rounding up young people who were, and killing them, he spoke out, and he even wrote an open letter to the thieves to the guys in jail. He wrote an open letter to them and said these were very, symbolic gesture from the. And that's why, again, he stands out as a prophetic figure in the history of the church in Cameroon. And of course, we are hoping that more bishops and clergy will continue will take up this task and continue to speak up for the weak, for the oppressed, for justice, for truth. Because for me, that's the role of the church. The church should be the moral and spiritual conscience of any society. And I'm not, I mean, it's disappointing that they are not doing it as a body right now, but I'm hopeful that, and this is not only true for the clergy. Let me just finish by saying that it's also true for the lay people. You know, lay people should also speak up. I mean, in other countries that are really actually well organized to take stand in situations of oppression and not just wait on the clergy and bishop to do that. So that's also a task in the church, which for me says a lot about the kind of evangelization we have had, that the lay people, including these people, why is it that those destroying the country are Catholics or Christians in majority? Why is it? But on Sunday, they will go and sit in churches, sing and dance and give their collections.
They will even occupy the front seats in church.
Yeah, in front seats, they will occupy the front seats, because those who have destroyed this country, somebody like Tanganji, he's a Catholic. He even built a church, a whole church, which, I mean, look at his actions as a public civil servant. Do you think that is honoring us as Catholic Church? But why is it that people live in this, separated world? When they're in public service, it's almost like they're demons. But when they come to the church, they play angels. This is something the church should reflect about. You see, why is it that Christians are the one? I'm not saying that Muslims are holy people at that sense. They also have their responsibilities. But I'm talking about Christian because I am a Christian, a Catholic priest. That why is it that when you look at the ruling class, most of them claim to be Christians, but they have been destroying the country. That's an issue, a serious issue of evangelization.
Yes. So there was no better person to have this bold, honest conversation with us today, other than Father Ludovic Lado. He's been speaking a lot about, he's been courageously and also conscientizing Cameroonians about some of the wrongs happening in the country. I remember when I was even still a young journalist, practicing journalist in Douala there, we would hear that Father Lado is taking a walk across the national territory just to call for an end and to urge the government to end the Anglophone crisis, which was something that could be done, but the government didn't have that political will to end the conflict that is still ongoing to today.
Sure.
And Father Lado has written a lot of books. He is so knowledgeable about politics in Cameroon, irrespective of what region, religion. He speaks across the board, so he doesn't target any specific individual. That's why you can see that he can talk literally about everything, and as far as Cameroon is concerned. So I just want to thank you so much, Father, for joining us tonight. Today was just to understand where the church stands. I mean, in the face of what we are witnessing in Cameroon today. And the fact that you created time to come and speak to us, speak to Cameroonians, is really an honor. Thank you so much, Father. And I know you should be blessing me, but God bless you as well.
God bless you, and God bless Cameroon and all Cameroonians. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. Thank you. And we continue to have discussions in the background. Certainly, we'll be so happy and blessed to have you again and to hear from you. And yes, stay blessed and have a nice day.
Be blessed too, and see you another time.
Yes, see you another time, Father. So that was Reverend Father Ludovic Lado joining us today on Road to A2D. Like we said, the road is we are still on our way to A2D. And in the beginning, I talked about a Cameroonian civil society movement known as Project C, which has issued a letter to the Pope ahead of a possible visit to Cameroon, urging him not to legitimize what they have described as a fraudulent election victory by longtime President Paul Biya. The group claimed that the October 12, 2025 presidential election, or the group is actually saying that the 12th of October presidential election was won by Issa Tchiroma and that the Catholic and independent observers documented these results. The official results announced by the government of Paul Biya reversed the outcome of Biya's favor in Biya's favor, and peaceful demonstrations demanding the truth, and have also faced the repression and violence. People have been arrested for just going out to protest peacefully. Now, Project C is also accusing the Catholic Church, as well as its leaders in Cameroon, of remaining silent about the alleged fraud, calling this a total betrayal of the Christian principle of justice and truth. They have warned that a papal visit conducted without openly addressing some of these issues that we've just mentioned, addressing the situation will actually grant moral and spiritual legitimacy to an illegitimate government. And we heard Father Lado also stressing on that, saying that that is going to be like some sort of legitimizing a government that has been described by the people as illegitimate. So the letter is urging the Pope to do three things: to publicly defend the truth about the election in Cameroon, to support courageous clergy and young Catholics that are speaking up. We saw what happened in Bamenda, and we've been seeing some prelates also denouncing, injustices in Cameroon, and also press bishops to release observer reports and denounce what Project C is calling manipulation. Now, the movement is framing the issue not as political, but a moral and spiritual crisis, stating that the church cannot serve both truth and lies. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening. It's always a pleasure having you with us, having this conversation about the things that are happening in our country. The discussion will continue in the comment section, but it's always an honor having you during this live, live streams, seeing how you're reacting and how you're feeling, the impressions from your end. We appreciate all the support. We appreciate you wherever you are joining us from, that the conversation, and we can only assure you that the conversation continues and will not end until the people's will is respected. Thank you so much once again, and stay blessed today and forever. Bye.